Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on tomorrow's front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines then with the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the PR consultant Alex Deane. Welcome and very happy New Year to both of you. So to the front pages, let's start, shall we, with the Metro. Their headline, "We escaped from hell," the story of passengers on a jetliner which collided with a military aircraft on a runway in Japan. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads with the assassination of Hamas's senior official, Saleh al-Aruri, in Lebanon. The Telegraph headlines the same story. The Times says millions of medical appointments have been cancelled as junior doctors begin a 6-day walkout. While the Mail investigates the pay of NHS bosses, some of whom are pocketing up to £300,000 a year, the paper says. The Eye looks at this year's mortgage prices as Halifax cuts interest rates. According to the FT, Elon Musk's Tesla is no longer the world's best-selling electric vehicle maker. It's now the Chinese firm BYD. Well, a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers for yourself while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Jenny and Alex. And not surprisingly, many of the newspapers with the picture of the day.
Incredible.
5 dead on this Coast Guard plane, but miraculously, as many have said, 379 people out of this Japanese airline plane.
Yeah, and it's testament to the plane, because this is the first crash, first major incident of an Airbus 350, but also the crew of the Japan Airlines, who managed to get all these passengers off the plane whilst it was engulfed with smoke and flames. Can you imagine the panic aboard that plane? And, you know, this is still a tragedy. 5 people were killed in this Coast Guard plane that was on its way to provide relief for, you know, the victims of this earthquake in Japan. This is a double tragedy for Japan. However, it could have been a tragedy of enormous proportions, and it is an incredible thing that 379 people managed to escape with their lives.
There will, of course, be questions about how it happened. Were they scrambling because they were trying to get aid to the victims of the earthquake and so forth? My gosh, Japan is going through it. But just for people who fly, one thing worth saying, and I fly a fair bit, and I've flown JAL a lot of times. If you fly in or out of Japan, it's a different experience from lots of airlines. When you have the safety briefing, people don't talk to each other, they don't have their headphones in, they don't read stuff, they actually pay attention. I think the cultural generalisations are normally a bad idea. I say here, I think Japanese people would think it rude to ignore the person giving you the briefing. Yeah. And boy, does it pay off to listen to those briefings. They actually mean something. Cabin crews the world over are very professional. It's not about the crews, it's about us as passengers. You should listen to that announcement.
And we certainly had an expert on earlier today who said he has his shoes on, his passport on his person, his car keys on his person for takeoff and landing, and listens acutely. And the other element people are saying is that when families are not sat together, they tend to, in circumstances like this, try and find their children, for example. And so we should stop having to pay for seats, because when families don't pay for seats, they don't sit together, and therefore they would scramble. And this 90-second ambition of getting off a flight like this, with this imminent disaster, you know, befalling everybody on board, you know, that would delay people.
There's something about following instructions, right? And a lot of people in Western scenarios, when the people rehearse these things, try and take their luggage.
Yes, right? But also people take sleeping pills on long-haul flights. I mean, this is a short-haul flight, but it gives you all the different reasons.
You take your shoes off straight away.
You take your shoes off, you make yourself comfortable. You know, all the different reasons why, you know, you perhaps should be vigilant. But yes, of course, we don't know what happened. We don't know exactly what the cause was, but we do know that in another time, perhaps in another country, on another airline, this could have been an unimaginable tragedy, a terrible, terrible thing to befall a country already dealing with huge tragedy. So it is a miracle, as they say on the front of the Metro. Really.
Well, they call it a runway incursion, and many people hark back to the Tenerife disaster
in the 70s.
It was the 80s.
I think that was mid-air, though, wasn't it? So it's the
no, it was on the ground, wasn't it, in Tenerife?
It revolutionised air traffic control. I think they changed all their practices
and the training, and indeed the composite material they build these aircraft from. So, but you know, the black box thinking in the airline industry is second to none. So lessons, no doubt, will be learned. Let's have a look at the FT's coverage as well. Once again, the 77, apologies, you were right, 77. A Japan Airlines plane bursts into flames on a runway at Tokyo's Haneda Airport after colliding with a Coast Guard plane. You know, just the most extraordinary pictures as the bottom of it falls, the second half of it falls off, doesn't it? And the people escaping just from, you know, just from the front of the aircraft.
I mean, I think it's interesting also that the way that the FT has chosen to cover this is to say that this is a second disaster. I mean, you know, everywhere else is saying, you know, it's a good news story almost, but, you know, 5 people were killed. The entire airport was shut all day. You know, this is a really sad time for the people of Japan. And it could have been so much worse, but it is a sad time.
OK. Let's move on to another story that leads a couple of the newspapers, which feels significant, does it not? Which is an incident in Beirut, not claimed by Israel, but it's taken out a very senior Hamas leader.
Yes.
And we've now heard from Hamas and from Hezbollah, Lebanese, obviously dominated, Iran-backed Hezbollah, who are taking this extremely seriously.
Yes, I mean, Israel never claims responsibility for these attacks when they are on foreign soil. You had Mark Regev, advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, not taking responsibility, but saying, you know, whoever did it, whatever happened, you know, Lebanon should know this is not an attack on Lebanon, this is a precision attack on... I mean, we all know who's behind it, even if they haven't laid claim to it. This is very interesting. It's significant. Israel would see this as a victory. So far, they have taken out... sort of generals, not even so much generals, middle-ranking military Hamas leaders within Gaza. They have a problem when it comes to taking out political leaders. This particular person was the deputy head of the political bureau, who was one of the founders of the military wing of Hamas. He's very, very significant. Most of the political leaders of Hamas are based in Qatar, which is an ally of the US. Israel cannot strike those people. They will have seen this. I mean, 5 people were killed there, but they will have seen this as a kind of quite a huge success for them that will remind people in the region that the IDF is prepared to travel far and wide in order to fulfill Israel's stated aim of obliterating Hamas. But it does make things diplomatically more tense in the region. And, you know, this man was a target before the 7th of October already for Israel. But the one thing that you know about Hamas is that they do not have one key leader who, if you take him out, all is lost. It is like a hydra. You cut one head off and 2 others return. So, this does not mean that the end is nigh for Hamas, but it is a significant victory for Israel. It will embolden Israel.
Yeah, and the point that Hamas are making, and indeed Hezbollah are making, is that this is an attack on Lebanon. Because in a sense, it serves their purpose to inflame, doesn't it?
The most significant thing about it, given the points Jenny accurately makes about the diffuse nature of leadership in organisations like this, isn't who it was, it's where it was. And a strike within Lebanon is a significant extension of the most proximate conflict.
But in the capital, that's the point, isn't it? It's not on the border or anything like that.
Correct. It is not new for Israel to conduct assassinations like this. After Munich, 1972, they conducted a range of attacks on those who were responsible or believed to be responsible for the killings of their athletes at the Olympics then. But in this heightened tension, when we've already seen what's happening in the Suez Canal, when we've already seen what's happening in the region and Yemen, to launch a strike like this in the capital of Lebanon is an extension and a heightening of the conflict.
One wonders how much appetite there is in Lebanon to get involved when they have witnessed what's happened to Gaza, with Israel, you know, bruised, hurting after October the 7th.
Yes, and this attack took place in a Hezbollah stronghold, and we know that both Hamas and Hezbollah are funded by Iran. It is a question of how much further they want to take it. I doubt that Lebanon is going to sort of step up hostilities against Israel. But nonetheless, I mean, I did find it quite amusing. Amusing is the wrong word. It took some cheek for Hamas to say that this was a cowardly assassination, given what Hamas is prepared to do to Israel. I mean, you know, how do you define cowardly here? It is a messy, dirty war, this. But nonetheless, this will be seen as a kind of a win for Benjamin Netanyahu, who's made so much about obliterating Hamas and so far has taken a lot of civilian lives and very few key figures within Hamas.
It comes at a time when Israel is talking about standing down reservists and withdrawing bulk of forces from Gaza and having more targeted strikes. Well, maybe now we're getting an idea of what they mean. They certainly don't mean kid gloves.
And obviously, they have not said that it was them that did this.
No.
If it was, it would be the first strike by Israel on Beirut, I think, since the war, Lebanon-Israel war in 2006. So,
yes. Well, they can't say they've done this. But then also there is the whole issue of Qatar. They can't do these kinds of attacks in Qatar. This is all a big diplomatic hornet's nest.
Yeah. Should we go to the Daily Mail? We've obviously got doctor strikes starting imminently. They're talking about the money, Alex, that doctors get.
Yeah, I'm always tired of stories that say people get X much more than the Prime Minister in an environment in which, very unpopular view, we underpay our politicians and underpay our Prime Minister. But it does seem, and this is perfect timing if you're a junior doctor and you're seeking support for your position, that £300,000 a year to run an NHS trust.
But these are the bosses, though, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is a significant number. But the point is, it's the bosses who are criticising the junior doctors for going out on strike. So the timing is very specific. On the other hand, let's remind ourselves that in Scotland, the junior doctors settled at around, I think it was 18.5%. And our, the English offer came in at 12 plus the 4 uplift. So you're not that far, sorry, 8 plus the 4 uplifts, taking them to 12. So if we're actually going to wind up somewhere near the Scots, you are in negotiation territory, right? You're at 5 or 6 percentage point difference. Junior doctors currently, on paper at least, still holding out for 35%, and that's what's causing the current walkouts.
Yeah, it's not just about pay, though, is it? It's sort of intolerable working conditions, partly because of the backlog that they've got.
Well, as I say, the Scots have settled, so it can't be that different.
Say again?
The health systems in England and Scotland aren't that different, and the junior doctors in Scotland have settled at 18%.
OK, so the temptation would be there, you're suggesting?
Well, I mean, it's a negotiating tactic, this 35. It's like a no-deal Brexit, isn't it? It's what people throw around in order to get closer to what they want. And, you know, it is interesting that this is the Mail's take, is saying, oh, the fat cat bosses. I mean, you would say that running an NHS trust is a pretty big deal.
Complex job.
And that, you know, you would expect it to be a competitive job with a competitive salary. There is a sense of, you know, there's going to be a 6-day walkout by these junior doctors. There have been 1.2 million procedures over the past year that have been postponed, changed because of this industrial action. You do get a sense that there is perhaps a kind of weariness, a fatigue, and we've now got to this point where we just don't really expect things to work in the NHS anymore, rather than everybody noticing, oh, 6 days, junior doctors are going to be, we need to sympathise with them. I do think that they deserve a pay increase. I wish that the government had better negotiating relations with them. I wish that they would be more reasonable and stop asking for 35%. It's a terrible shame.
I suppose what I was implying, that there is room for negotiation here, and if that's the case, you shouldn't withdraw your labour. Of course, it's a fundamental right to withdraw your labour, but it seems to me an extreme thing to do, especially if you're in the provision of healthcare. On your point about the 1.2 million cancelled appointments in the system, that number is likely to be a lowball estimate because people are already not scheduling things for days on which potential strikes have been announced. So the real number, the cost to the system, is going to be higher. And I thought it was very interesting. I can't remember if it was, I think it was Age UK today, said how worried they were about old people especially, just if they feel bad, thinking, I can't trouble the NHS at the moment. Junior doctors are out and not calling 111, not calling the health service. Worth saying, whatever your position on these strikes, doctors have said they will in emergency go and help. They will help in major incidents. And if you don't feel well, call 111 or call 999.
Well, we know that works, or that happens, because my daughter broke her wrist and I didn't go in for 4 days because it was strike time, so there we are. So anyway, she fell again that we went, and then it really hurt. Anyway, I want to pick up on this one in the FT. Tesla losing its crown as the world's top electric car maker to China's BYD, which means build your dreams, doesn't it?
Yes, and apparently build your dreams, they're saying they're the biggest car brand you've never heard of. This is to do with their previous quarter's sales, so it's not annual sales. Build Your Dreams, Chinese company, they produce their own batteries. This is what's so interesting. So they are able to be flexible with their pricing in a way that Tesla isn't. This is, of course, the future of cars. It's not been a great year for Elon Musk. There was a story in The Guardian today that Twitter, I'm not calling it X, Twitter has lost 71% of its value since he took it over. But, you know, he's got enough money that he can handle all of this. But this is really, really interesting in terms of the future. These brands that we haven't even heard of quietly creeping ahead.
But, I mean, they've led the way in solar panels. They're leading the way in new industries, and this is something... And they've got those, you know, rare earth metals as well, which make it also critical.
And a huge and protected internal market and an authoritarian command economy, which can help you on some of these things. But I would invite people... Elon Musk is unpopular in lots of places, but I invite people to realise sometimes the lesser of two evils is still desirable. If you actually want the future of vehicles to be controlled by a Chinese manufacturer, I reflect to invite you to reflect for a moment on how much you're delighted to see Elon Musk coming second. That might not actually be the best outcome.
I'm not saying anything bad about his cars. I just do think he has totally ruined Twitter.
I thought Alex was going to say buy British eventually on that one.
Of course, of course. First option, buy British.
Exactly. Anyway, lots more still to come, including reflecting on the 16-year-old making history in the World Darts Championship. Amazing stuff. Back in a moment. Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me once again, Jenny Kleeman, Alex Deane. Welcome back to both of you. Front page of the Eye, front page of the Telegraph as well, about mortgages. Suggestion that there is a mortgage rates war underway, Alex.
Yes, and you will find few things on which this panel firmly agrees, but as people who fixed their mortgages last year, separate mortgages, I stress, as I moved house last year, fixed my mortgage, it's a bit annoying, but it is very good for the economy. Many people have been really struggling to get onto the housing ladder. We've seen that not even the bank of mum and dad, which people have been depending on for a generation to buy their first home, can help enough people to get mortgages. And with high rates as they've been, this is really, really good news for people who want to either remortgage because they're coming to the end of their term, or get on the housing ladder for the first time.
So what my question was why, when the Bank of England governor still seems to suggest that interest rates will be high for a long time. But we did see the big inflation fall, I guess, didn't we, last month?
There has been speculation, apparently, that interest rates are going to be cut twice this year, so the front of the Eye says, and it is Halifax that cuts interest rates first, apparently, which sticks in the craw even more, because I have a mortgage with Halifax, who I fixed with in November, but only for 2 years. So hopefully it's all going to continue to go down. But, you know, there are a lot of people who will be in the same situation. As, you know, there are many millions of people who fixed. It is the way the ridiculous mortgage system works in this country. But, yes, it is good news, although not for me.
When you're circling the activity and you think rates may come down, you can still make some profit as a provider on a lower rate. So there's that. But there's also a significant first mover advantage. The one that goes first tends to get the real lion's share of people's business. People were thinking of changing their mortgage. They see the headline, they see institution X has come down in their rates, and they get a vast majority of the people who are switching that day, week, month.
So going first
has real advantage,
right.
And that's why you get these price wars.
OK, fascinating. Let's go to The Guardian. This is the right-hand column, if you take a look. And this is Keir Starmer, Labour leader. They say cleaning up politics, but is it cleaning up people who've got government contracts, effectively?
It's cleaning up cronyism. So this is one of those, he is going to make a speech. They've seen a draft of the speech, and in this speech he's going to say that people who defraud the government will face going to jail for a decade under new plans, which I think people are going to like the sound of, especially in the light of the Michelle Mone story. The big question about
the allegations of which have been denied.
The allegations of which have been denied, and we know how litigious she can be as well. The question being in these particular situations, I think at a time when the public finances are squeezed and millionaires are making a lot of money, why don't they pay it back, first of all? But also this question of setting standards, and this being Keir Starmer trying to present himself as my government will be unimpeachable, even though it was extraordinary times in the times of the pandemic. We will make people repay, and we will make people pay in terms of going to prison when they defraud the government. And I think people will like that.
So Keir Starmer's going to be clear. Keir Starmer's going to announce that he's going to have a maximum 10-year sentence for defrauding the government. That's his new policy. Do you know what the maximum sentence for fraud is already? 10 years.
Well,
it's not a new policy.
Then why not? But then why isn't it being enforced? Why isn't it being enforced? That's the whole thing.
It's not a new policy.
Well, maybe he'll enforce it. It's still, I think it's good politics because people will sign up to it.
I think we've lost Alex.
I've got a new policy for 10 years.
Yeah, it's good politics.
It's already 10 years. It's not one day more.
Oh, he's tickled him. Anyway, let's talk about Luke, shall we? Alex, are you capable of...
I'm OK.
Have a drink, have some water. It is
I'm all right.
water.
For this story, I'll pull myself together.
Yeah, OK. So he's 16 and hasn't he done amazingly well already?
He's 16, even though he does not look 16. What were you doing when you were 16?
I certainly wasn't in the World Cup World Final of darts.
He's going to school tomorrow, apparently.
He's blown it, because until today, most pubs in the land would have served him. But now he's done for another year and a bit. It is an amazing achievement, and one thing worth reflecting on is what this sport has been transformed. In my youth, this was the most dowdy
This is a
sport.
party down there in Ali Pali.
It's incredible.
I mean, I think our youths were basically at the same time, Alex, and I was still watching this. It's always compelling. Even though, I mean, God, it's not glamorous. He hasn't made it glamorous, but it is a compelling watch.
It's
And
joyous,
when
yeah.
you've got a kind of young upstart. And also, you know, his family were releasing videos of him as a child in nappies throwing magnetic darts. Like, he's clearly a kind of wunderkind.
And he's so level-headed. You listen to any of his interviews, he's so calm with it.
You have to be calm, don't you?
I know, you have to be steady and calm, but it is amazing, actually. I hope he goes all the way. Not to wish his opponents bad luck, but I hope he goes all the way.
Yeah, all homegrown, I think, aren't they? In
Yeah.
the final. Anyway, well done. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you recover, Alex.
You're right.
Make yourself laugh, that's fine. Jenny and Alex, thank you. Here's the weather.